So our goals for today, first of all, I want to help you understand why most employee recognition programs don't work. In the States, 90% of all companies and organizations have some form of employee recognition. I don't know. I think it's about the same in Western Europe, at least. And I want to help you learn how to communicate authentic appreciation to other people. It's not the same as employee recognition. We'll differentiate those two. Third, I want to give you practical tools that you can use immediately. If we don't get practical, I've wasted your time, I've wasted my time. So we will get to some things that you can use and apply today. And then we need to have some fun together, right? And this is a quote that you can quote me. If we don't have any fun, it's not any fun. Okay, so you can write that down if you want. So, all right. So let's start out. This is sort of the sad state of employee recognition. This guy says, every time you do something right, I'll punch your rewards card, and when you reach 10,000 punches, you earn a high five. And so in some corporations, you have to do a lot of little things for not much. And unfortunately, that's the case in a lot of places. Now, I don't want you to answer this out loud, but I want you to think about, what do you think the number one factor is that affects how much people actually enjoy their jobs? Okay, and I'm going to give you two hints. First of all, it's not money. Okay, I have the opportunity to work with multimillionaire families and family-owned businesses, and people that have a lot of money aren't any happier than anybody else. Now, we all wouldn't mind earning a little more money, correct? All right, but we know that if all you do is get a raise or a bonus or something and nothing else in the workplace changes as far as your relationships and communication and decision-making, after a while, the money doesn't really help that much, right? Secondly, is that it's not that recognition is communicated. And at some point, you might say, well, why are we here? I thought that's what we were talking about. Actually, we'll show why that's the case and what's different about that. So let me tell you about the importance of appreciation. First of all, there are a couple foundational facts you need to understand. One is that most of us really do want to feel valued and appreciated at work. We don't want to just put in our time. We don't want to just go through the motions and make a paycheck and so forth. And we'd like to make a difference as well. But not only that, we would like other people to value what we do as well as valuing it ourselves, correct? Okay, that's a Danish thing. Okay, so the second one is that most people don't feel appreciated. And let me show a little bit of data about that. 79% of people who quit their jobs voluntarily cite that a lack of appreciation is one of the primary drivers that they leave. Now, so that's almost 80%, 4 out of 5 people. Most managers and employers think that it's people leave for money. But that's actually not the case, because when you leave a job, it's a very emotionally taxing process, right? I mean, you're sort of dealing with the stress of thinking about going and then leaving and looking, and so it takes an emotional driver. So it's that lack of appreciation that really makes sort of the difference and turns it over there. Now, this is North Americans, and I've got a global one here, but 65% of North Americans say that they haven't received any recognition or appreciation for doing a good job in the past year. When I first saw this, I'm like, can this be true? 12 months, they haven't heard anything? I think the key word is that they haven't received it, because what's going on, there are things going on, but it's not getting to them, so it's sort of like they don't hear it at all. Here was a global study done by 200,000 employees worldwide. Asked them why they enjoyed their work. First, top reason is that they feel appreciated. When I saw this, I'm like, can this be true? I mean, is it that high? You know, and number 3, is it? Yeah. Or number 2 is good relationship with colleagues, and number 4 is with supervisors, which I think plays into that as well. Money is down at number 8, right? So there's something about feeling valued and appreciated that's important to most of us. Here's the one that I think really helps us understand some of what's going on. They did a study of several corporations, and they said 51% of the managers think they're doing a pretty good job of showing recognition for a job well done. I like this because it feels realistic. It's not 95% saying I'm doing a great job, right? But it's about half saying I'm doing an okay job. The problem is, in the same corporations, the people that report to those managers, only 17% of the employees felt like they were doing a good job. So we've got a disconnect there, right? So we must ask, if we want to feel valued and appreciated, why don't we? Okay. And like I said, most of the stuff that I talk about is not that difficult conceptually. I mean, it's not rocket science, so it's pretty obvious. I mean, first of all, they don't hear much positive. I mean, I had a friend tell me that, he said, yeah, I need to get this book to my boss. And I said, what's up? And he said, well, I'm an accountant, and I do my job the best I can. And as long as I'm doing my work and getting it in on time, I don't really hear it much. In fact, he said the silence is deafening. He said, but if I make a mistake or I'm a little bit late, what? Boom, they're all over me, right? And so he said, I just don't hear much positive. And it actually turned out within 6 months he left that job because he didn't want to work in that kind of environment. It's sort of like this supervisor. She says, if I walk past your desk without stopping to criticize your work, that counts as a compliment. And so, I don't know, I think they probably do that here as well. And so it's not the no news is good news. I mean, if we've asked for a raise and we don't hear anything, we don't say, oh man, they're trying to figure out a way to pay me twice as much as I asked for, right? I mean, it's usually we're putting in sort of the negative. The second reason that most people don't feel valued is the messages that are sent usually aren't that meaningful to them. I mean, you send a blast email to your group and say, way to go team, we got the project done, or we met our goals for the quarter or whatever. Now, I'm supposed to be an expert in this, so I'm going to encourage you and make you feel really good real quick. All right, ready? You guys are great. Glad you're here. Man, I'm glad you're part of the team. Okay, you can barely stay in your seat, right? I mean, it's just like, woo! Okay? And the issue is that it's so generic, it doesn't really matter. So the other thing that happens in some organizations that the recognition is so performance-based, which is a good thing, by the way, to reward and acknowledge people who are doing a good job and meeting goals. But at some point, people are people. Is anybody else here a person outside of work besides me? Okay? I mean, you have a life or characteristics or anything. And so if all they hear is about meeting goals and standards, people start to resent that because they just feel like they're a work unit, right? So, and then the other issue is that people just don't feel like the group or the managers are sincere. I mean, I had one nurse manager who said, they don't give a rip about us. They're just doing this to make themselves look good to the board or to improve our employee engagement, marks, okay? Question 7 on Gallup poll. So most people don't feel valued, something's not going right. So when people don't feel valued, appreciated, what happens over time? Well, typically people just get sort of discouraged. It's like, why do I keep doing all this extra work, and doing the extra stuff and nobody cares and I don't ever hear anything? And actually, don't have time to go, it's more than that, they get irritated and so forth. But here's the thing that we have to sell managers and higher level people. It impacts the organization negatively, significantly. What kinds of things happen? Well, first, people get discouraged. One of the things that we see go down is creative problem solving goes down, because creative problem solving takes effort and energy, and you're like, if they don't care, I'm going to let somebody else deal with it, right? Secondly, they don't follow policies and procedures. Now, I know policies and procedures aren't important in your organizations if you're like in a bank or something like that. So, they can just, fill it out however they want. But in some places, do you guys have sarcasm in Denmark? I don't know. What's the word for it? Okay. So, okay. Just making sure. Yeah, some people say, I know what the 6th language is, and I said, it's not sarcasm, okay? So, but following policies and procedures that they just don't do it because it takes extra effort. And so they say, I'm not going to worry about it. Another thing that happens is that people call in sick more often. In fact, we know that in the States, they showed that this last year, 38% of the people admitted to calling in sick when they really weren't sick. And then people don't work as hard because, they just don't feel like it's worth it. Here's one that you wouldn't ever figure out if you didn't come today, and that is when people don't feel valued, they don't keep it to themselves. Okay, you're welcome for that. And so they start to grumble and complain, and then they start to, snipe and gossip and that kind of stuff, and then you have these little pockets of negativity that go on. And for you all, I mean, when people don't feel valued, they're less likely to engage in the change process. And so they're more resistant. It's like their defenses are up, and they're like, I don't know, I don't trust you, and why should I do this? You didn't care what I did before, I'm just going to keep doing it. Whereas we know the flip side is when they do feel valued, they're more open to listening and trusting you on that. And ultimately, people that don't feel valued are tough to manage. In fact, there's one study that showed 80% of North Americans are totally or marginally or totally disengaged from the workplace, meaning they're there physically but not emotionally or mentally. Only 30% of those people are looking for work. Now, I'm not real good at math, but 80 minus 30 is what? Hello? 50, thank you. Okay, thank you. You guys know math as well? Okay, 50. 80 minus 30 is 50. 50% of the people don't really want to be there, but they're not going anywhere. That's a fun group to manage, right? Okay, so it's like, what's going on? So if it's so important, why isn't appreciated communicated more? The number one reason is busyness. I mean, from managers, supervisors, frontline, there's like, I don't have time to do this. All right, actually the number two reason is busyness as well. I mean, I'll talk to people and say, no, Paul, you didn't hear me. I don't have time for this. And one of the goals that we've done as we've developed this is to make it not another to-do list. You don't need another to-do list, right? You have a regular to-do list and you have a project to-do list. You don't need an appreciation or recognition one. So busyness is almost always the first resistance that you get. Sometimes it's just that it's not valued by either the individual or the organization. They basically think it's stupid. It's like, well, we're not here to make people happy. And I would agree. You know, if you try to make other people happy, you're going to, fail every time because happiness is a personal choice. We will have a group hug at the end because I know you're looking forward to that. But also, sometimes people have tried it and it didn't work. I mean, they send an email or they compliment. I had one guy, he said, yeah, I had a friend who did a project. And I said, Jason, great job, way to go. You got that done. It worked well. And he said, in reply, yeah, whatever. Walked, so that was really reinforcing to him to, do it some more. But sometimes they're like, well, I said it and it didn't really matter, and so I don't know what else to do. Briefly, I want to go through some of the differences between recognition and appreciation, and so that we have this book because they're different. They overlap, but they're not exactly the same. When I talk to businesses and groups of both employees and supervisors, the three most common responses I get when I ask them about their employee recognition program is, first of all, apathy. It's like, yeah, oh, don't we have that? Oh, yeah, you have to go every quarter down to the conference room, and they do a little thing and said, doesn't mean anything to me, I don't really care. Second one is sarcasm. So let me define sarcasm for you. So this was, I was working with a group in Chicago, and this guy came up and he said, oh yeah, we've got a great employee recognition program. He said, when you get Employee of the Month, you get a special parking spot, which in Chicago is a deal, right? I mean, it's a real deal, okay? In Kansas, where I live, it doesn't matter. But he said, I ride my bike to work, and I still got the parking spot. So it's like, well, that was real individual. Okay, so, and then we add a little twinge of anger, and you get cynicism. And it's sort of like, this is a joke. We've done this stuff before. We had to write 3 notes of thanks, and, it's sort of the flavor of the month. You have that phrase, it's sort of like, oh, we're doing this one this year, okay? Last year we did the color test and whatever. And so they're just like, leave me out. Here's some reasons why most employee recognition programs don't work. First of all, they're pretty generic, that everybody gets the same certificate, they get the same gift card or little award, the little, what do you call that nice clear plastic stuff? I forget what the word is, but the little glass award that says, Employee of the Month. And everybody gets the same. And some people say, yeah, well, this month it was IT, last month it was accounting, and next month it'll be customer service. It's just sort of a political kind of thing, and so it feels very generic. Also, in a lot of organizations, the recognition is very group-based, where you have to go gather up at least once a year and sort of hear who got awards and so forth. Now, I won't ask those of you who are introverts to raise your hand because introverts don't do that, but there are a group of people that going to a highly unstructured group activity with people they don't know very well is just painful, and it's just like, just kick me in the shins first and let's get it over with, okay? I mean, it's like, I don't want to go. So it can be group-based. It also, in our terminology, uses words of affirmation, which is good, and rewards, tangible gifts, but our research shows that that's only 50% of the employee workforce that have those languages as what they prefer of how to be shown appreciation. So I had an IT group I was working with, and they said, well, how about like twice a year? Is that good? I said, yeah, we probably need to step it up a little bit beyond that. It's largely organizational. It's top-down. It comes from either the management or the HR managers, and in fact, it doesn't matter who the HR manager is. I mean, this month it could be Stephanie, and this person gets the award, and next month it's Tom, and it doesn't have anything to do about the relationship between the two of them. It's just organizational. And then what happens is it's not perceived as genuine. And that's what we're experiencing a lot, is there's a lot of negative pushback because people don't think it's about them. In fact, I hope you don't work with an organization and say, oh, we heard physical touch is important, so we'll put up a little machine you can put money in, and then you get your own high five, right? So banks in our country do that as long as you pay for it. Okay, so the fact is, though, and I don't use the word fact very often or the word absolutely, but we absolutely do know how to train employees to successfully communicate authentic appreciation. Key word there is employees. This is not solely for managers, supervisors, leaders of whatever level. What we found, it was initially, we sort of focused on managers, but what we found is that it's really important for people to know how to encourage and show appreciation to one another, regardless of their position. And we've done so in a wide variety of settings, schools, hospitals, banks, the military, manufacturing firms, all different kinds. We haven't done sort of prisons yet, but we may get there at some point. Now, if you're going to take a note, content-wise, this is the note to take and keep. We've learned that there's 4 key conditions that help people really feel valued versus just, sort of hoping or going through the motions. People are going to feel valued if the appreciation, first of all, is communicated regularly. What does that mean? Regularly means different things in different settings, in different relationships. So if you're on a committee that you meet with somebody only every quarter, that's a different rate than if somebody that's your right-hand person and you see them every day. So it's within the context of the relationship. But it needs to be regular. Otherwise, they don't believe that it's true, right? So first, it needs to be regular. Secondly, it needs to be expressed in the language and actions most important to the recipient. Key word, recipient. It doesn't matter what's encouraging or how you feel appreciated. And this is a thing that we have to work with some newer and younger leaders that, people are different than you. And you have to learn how to lead people who are different than you. Otherwise, you have a bunch of little mini yous following you around. And you may be great and talented, but you need a team of different skills and personalities. So it needs to be in the language and actions important to the recipient. Third, it needs to be individualized and delivered personally. It needs to be about them as a person, what they've done. It's sort of like this. It's like, Stephanie, thank you for getting your reports done and in on time regularly. Why? Because that helps me turn my reports in as well, okay? Or we got the project done, but Jane, thank you for staying late and entering the data so that we could get the report out, right? So it has to be about them. And also has to be delivered personally. I had a story come back to me that had a president tell his assistant, said, I want you to go tell Steve what a great job he did on that project and how, I'm proud of him. And that was deeply meaningful to Steve, I'm sure, as he listened to the assistant tell him that. It's like, get out of your seat or give him a call, right? So it has to be personal. Now, maybe they don't do that here, but in the States, we do that kind of stupid stuff where it's indirect. And then the last one is that it has to be viewed as authentic. And that's actually the challenge of appreciation, because there are some people that are more difficult to appreciate than others, at least in the States. I don't know about in Europe, but there are some that are tougher, either performance-wise or personality-wise, or you just don't relate to them as well. And so part of the training that we take teams through is to help deal with what do you do when you are struggling with appreciating somebody, and how do you figure that out? And let me just say this, you don't just blow through it and try to fake it, because that doesn't go well. People tend to read that, and then it undermines trust even further. Here's a core principle we may have to spend 15 or 20 minutes on because it's really hard to understand, and that is that not everybody feels appreciated in the same ways, right? And so there's this book called The 5 Love Languages. How many of you have ever heard of that book? Anybody? It's sold 10 million copies. It's in 50 languages. Ours is only in 15, currently going to be 16 and 17. But the love languages are about communicating love in personal relationships. It's a great book. We found that the same languages in name, at least, are true in the workplace. Words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and yes, even physical touch.